Okay, before we get started today, I wanted to cover a couple of things that we kind of read through yesterday. Jacob's ladder and Jacob's pillow. Now, Jacob had just stolen Esau's birthright and he took his blessings from Isaac. And Esau was very angry and had threatened to kill Jacob. So Jacob was on the run from Esau and he was headed to Laban's house. Rebekah, his mother, his mother's brother, Laban, to find him a wife and to get away from Esau. And so he was out in the desert at Bethel, and he went to sleep. Found him a smooth stone called Jacob's pillow, and he laid his head on this pillow, on this stone, and he had a dream, and he saw this ladder going up into heaven, and he saw angels ascending and descending on this ladder, and up at the top he saw God up there, and God in a dream told him that he would be a great nation and that he would be with him. And that's what the dream was about. And this pillar, Jacob took this stone and turned it up and poured oil on top of it and made it as a altar to God. Now, where's this stone at today? It's over in Scotland. And when the king or the queen of England gets coronated, that means they get sworn in there at Westminster Abbey. And they have a great big coronation chair. And under that chair, they take that stone, Jacob's pillar, and they put it under the coronation chair. And when the king or the queen of England, like King Charles, just got coronated not long ago after Queen Elizabeth passed away, under that coronation chair is Jacob's pillow. So during the coronation, that's where it's at. But they keep it over in Scotland most of the time. Now, another thing I wanted to talk about was after King Zedekiah, back in 586 BC, Zedekiah, the third time Nebuchadnezzar came to Jerusalem because the Jews kept rebelling. And so Zedekiah had to make a run for it because they were busting down the walls and burning the gates. And Jerusalem was being destroyed by Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonians. And so Zedekiah made a run for it, the princes and all his sons. But Zedekiah had 6 daughters. His sons were all killed before him, and all the princes of Judah were killed before him. And then they put his eyes out and hauled him to Babylon and put him into prison. And he died in Babylon, Zedekiah did. But he had 6 daughters that were prophetesses. And they were all preachers and they were all virgins. And Jeremiah took these 6 daughters of Zedekiah that the Babylonians didn't kill. And he took those 6 daughters of Zedekiah, all of them prophetesses, and he took them over there to Scotland. And one of them, Scotia, they named Scotland after. So there's a lot of history there in Scotland with Jeremiah and those 6 prophetesses, the daughters of Zedekiah. Now, we're going to continue on in our Father's Word today. We're going to continue on here in Genesis 30, verse 25. And it came to pass, when Rachel had borne Joseph, that Jacob said unto Laban, Send me away that I may go into my own place, into my own country, and give me my wives and my children, for whom I have served thee, and let me go. For thou knowest my service, which I have done thee. And Laban said unto him, I pray thee, if I have found favor in thine eye, tarry, for I have learned by experience that the Lord hath blessed me for thy sake. And he said, appoint me thy wages, and I will give it. And he said unto him, thou knowest how I have served thee, and how thy cattle was with me. And it was little which thou hadst before I came, and it is now increased into a multitude. And the Lord has blessed thee since my coming, and now when shall I provide for mine own house also. And he said, what shall I give thee? And Jacob said, thou shalt not give me anything. If thou wilt do this thing for me, I will again feed and keep the flock. I will pass through all the flock that day, recovering from thence all the speckled and spotted cattle, and all the brown cattle among the sheep, and the spotted and speckled among the goats, and of such shall be of my hire. So shall my righteousness answer for me in time to come, when it shall come for my hire before thy face. Every one that is not speckled and spotted among the goats, and brown among the sheep, that shall be counted stolen with me. And Laban said, behold, I would it be right according to thy word. And he removed that day the he-goats that were ring-staked and spotted, and all the she-goats that were speckled and spotted, and every one that had some white in it, and all the brown among the sheep, and gave them into the hands of his sons. And he set 3 days' journey betwixt himself and Jacob. And Jacob fed the rest of Laban's flocks. And Jacob took him rods of green poplar, and of the hazel and chestnut tree, and piled white stakes in them, and made the white appear, which was in the rods. And he set the rods which he had piled before the flocks, in the gutters in the watering troughs, when the flocks came to drink, that they should conceive when they came to drink. And the flocks conceived before the rods, and brought forth cattle ring-staked, speckled, and spotted. And Jacob did separate the lambs, and set the faces of the flocks toward the ring-stakes, and all the brown in the flock of Laban. And he put his own flocks by themselves, and put them not into Laban's cattle. And it came to pass, whensoever the stronger cattle did conceive, that Jacob laid the rods before the eyes of the cattle in the gutters, that they might conceive among the rods. But when the cattle were feeble, he put them not in. So the feebler were Laban's, and the stronger were Jacob's. And the man increased exceedingly, and had much cattle and maidservants, and men servants, and camels and asses. Now this is Genesis chapter 31. And then he heard the words of Laban's son, saying, Jacob hath taken away all that was our father's, and of that which was our father's hath he gotten all this glory. And Jacob beheld the countenance of Laban, and behold, it was not toward him as before. And the Lord said unto Jacob, return into the land of thy fathers, and to thy kindred, and I will be with thee. And Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah to the field unto his flock, and said unto them, I see your father's countenance, that it is not toward me as before. But the God of my father hath been with me, and ye know that I have all my power, I have served your father. And your father hath deceived me, and changed my wages 10 times. But God suffered him not to hurt me. If he said thus, the speckle shall be thy wages, then all the cattle bear speckled. And if he said thus, the ring stake shall be thy hire, then bear all the cattle ring staked. Thus God hath taken away the cattle of your father, and given them to me.